Hello, hello. I've been getting questions about kind of market updates related to when is the right time to buy. So I thought I'd put this together. Market update. The market is still incredibly consistent right now. Consistent meaning that we have been in this very, very, very strong seller's market. Well, we've been in a seller's market since 2011. So that part hasn't changed. What has changed is everybody's perception around supply and demand. Supply is low, but the reason it's low is because demand is through the roof. It is far, far, far outpacing where we normally are, and as a result, causing the supply and demand issue that we're facing today. So that hasn't changed over the last, year, but especially the last, let's say, 4 months have been incredibly intensified. All of those things to say, there's also nothing that really suggests a shift in the near future. If there was one, my assumption is that it would have to be around interest rates. We need something to cause people to not want to buy. So obviously the rising prices aren't the reason people aren't buying or aren't causing people to not want to buy, and frankly probably because they're substantiated. If you talk to economists and they look at our market where it should be had the bubble and burst never occurred, we're really right there. So they're not inflated, it's that people think they're inflated because of how much of an increase we saw over the last year or a year and a half now. I digress. The market is consistent and not likely to change in the near future. And if I'm right, this is right, crystal ball talking, if the thing that causes it to change is interest rates, then the question will be, is the negative change in interest rates enough to offset whatever could be the plus side? So this is why I wanted to help people understand kind of what the converse is in their mind when they say, well, I'll wait for prices to come down. So let's suppose they did, although real estate, of course, is an appreciating asset, and on average, it's 4% annually. So we've been in a much higher than 4% trend for many years now, frankly. And yet, in order for it to decrease, it not only would have to stop all of its continuous growth that it's been on, but it would also have to take a hit downward, right? So factors to keep in mind, but here's the rule of thumb that you'll want to keep in mind. For every 1% the market increases in interest rates, right? So let's say if you're at 3.25% today and a year from now it's 4.25%, you would need the market to have compressed pricing by 10% in order to break even. So let's think about that, right? Last year the market grew 19%. So not only, right, if this is zero, it grew 19%. Not only would we need it to not happen again, right? So it would have to stay at zero, but then we would need to see it decompress 10% in order just to stay even, right? That's not even getting ahead. So then let's reverse engineer that thought process. If the market pricing fell 10% overnight, what does that look like for our economy as a whole? And so the idea that pricing fluctuates at that capacity is really just a wish. And it's common. I get a lot of people who say like, well, what do you think is going to happen with the market? And what they're really asking is, do you think pricing will go down? And as an investor, I would love if pricing went down. It's a great opportunity to buy and reinvest, right? Circa anybody who bought real estate between 2010 and 2014. That was the ultimate time to snatch as much real estate as you could, and those people have a whole new world presented to them. But keep in mind also that that was the greatest economic downfall since the Great Depression. So is that likely to come back around? No. Maybe in our lifetime, right? People who were alive for the Great Depression, there are still some people then who saw this collapse, but I hope you're not snatching up a bunch of real estate when you're like 100. Anyway, I'm getting off track. What I mean to say here, though, is a lot of people are hoping that prices will fall, but they're not keeping in mind that there's other variables that can change. My attitude is that you play with the cards in your hand. And so right now, Dustin and I are closing on a new home. We move in, a couple weeks now. And I bought because while pricing, frankly, should at some point in time, whether it's 2 years from now or 20 years from now, will have some sort of downfall. I intend on keeping it as a long-term investment. And B, I recognize that waiting for that can also have negative effects, right? A higher interest rate, or perhaps there's more inventory, so it decompresses pricing. There's a million other things that could cause that to not work out in the long run. And so I want to make sure in today's market, I'm buying in a smart way, right? And so your agent walks you through that, but making sure that pricing makes sense and condition makes sense, and that more importantly, it's affordable and that you can buy that house. And can we afford it 5 years from now and 10 years from now, right? Do we see substantial life changes that might affect our income? That's the kind of stuff you want to think about when you're buying real estate, not so much the factors that you have zero control over. Hopefully this is helpful as you kind of decide, should I rent, should I buy? Oh, another thing on the flip side of that is, if it's between renting and buying, the question that I have on the renting side is are things going to change for the upside to you? Let's say you just started a new job and your compensation model changes in 6 months. That would be the perfect reason to wait to buy, because the odds are in that short amount of time, the real estate market isn't going to change drastically, but your income will. And that will put you in a safer, more affordable position. And that would be the perfect example of why you would choose to rent instead of buy. So hopefully this is helpful. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.